Reports of American-led coalition airstrikes that may have hit Syrian troops and vehicles and may have killed dozens of Syrian army forces. The United States Military Central Command now releasing a statement on these airstrikes. On the phone with me, our Pentagon correspondent, Barbara Starr. Barbara, this comes amid a critical ceasefire between the United States and Russia. What do we know about what happened and where?
Well, this puppy was in eastern Syria, a place called Deir ez-Zor. The U.S. military, the coalition, thought it was striking an ISIS target, personnel, troops, and vehicles that it had been watching for some time. They had actually, under pretty standard procedures, spoken to the Russians ahead of time, giving them a general area that they were targeting, but not the specifics. But about 25 minutes into the series of airstrikes, the Russians apparently called back to the U.S. and said, "You are hitting Syrian forces, not ISIS." At that point, the U.S. military says it immediately withdrew its aircraft and struck no more targets there. They are certainly looking into how this all happened, where the mistake was made, and so we will have to see. It has not happened before. Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria is a place where ISIS has been, the regime has been, the Russians have been. So it's a very complicated picture on the ground there. The U.S. not officially, formally saying it struck Syrian troops, but the statement makes it pretty clear the U.S. has every reason to believe, in fact, that is what happened. Poppy?
And I understand that what happened is about 25 minutes into the airstrike, the Russians called the U.S. and said, look, you just stop. You're hitting regime forces. You're hitting Syrian troops. Put this in context for us in terms of, Barbara, what this does to the delicate ceasefire agreement that appeared to be holding for 6 straight days.
Well, that, of course, is perhaps best thought of as being much further to the west in northwestern Syria, near Aleppo. That involves the U.S., the Russians, and the regime, of course, in getting the regime and the Russians to stop bombing civilians and getting the Syrians to let aid in. That has been somewhat problematic. The aid is not flowing, at least not on any regular basis. Much of the violence has stopped, but not all of it. So the Obama administration making clear it wants to see 7 sustained days, 7 days in a row of no violence and the aid flowing in to that area around Aleppo, which is at the other end of the country. But you're absolutely right. I mean, this is a ceasefire agreement that was already in trouble. So what has now happened over in eastern Syria, we're going to have to see how the Russians react and how the Syrian regime reacts.